So today what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about something that's really near and dear to my heart because it's what I do for a living. At the end of the day, in our purest form, we are a salesperson. And sales in general, I think, has gotten a bad rap. Ultimately, you know, there's a lot of people out there probably in now and in the history of time that have probably used persuasion, more like manipulation, right?
Yeah, you know, the sales thing in general, I think it's always had a bad rap. You know, there's just, I think where with social media, with products that are available, where now anybody can sell anything online, that there's so many different types of sales and different types of things that are being sold now that it's hard to really, you know, pigeonhole that into like, I'm a salesman or I'm a salesperson or whatever we want to call it in that regard. But I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Right.
It's boring. I've tried it. I've tried doing something else. I didn't like it. It was boring.
Yeah. And honestly, I've really checked myself on this. And I think that the difference between, you know, salesmanship or persuasion and manipulation is the end result for the consumer. Mm-hmm. Like, do I want what's best for the consumer? And I think if that is what you're trying to do and trying to what you get at, obviously we're going to make some money doing it. Yeah. But ultimately, if you're trying to improve their lives, I think that's when you really can feel good about what you do.
And I think that's where time is. I always tell people, and I started learning this as, you know, we've got really deep into it. You know, I started in like the online, you know, the corporate perspective where I wasn't people facing or customer facing. And you really experience this when you're customer facing is it's harder to overcome the very small percentage of the people that give the sales side a bad name because you feel like you're walking into a situation where you already kind of have that bad condemnation, like, oh, they're going to sell us on something.
Yeah.
So you almost have to prove your honesty more than you have to prove your sketchiness. You know, people just assume you're sketchy, you know, in that situation. So coming in, when I first was building that, it's like, hey, like, I'm giving you my best opinion as a professional, and this is what makes sense for you, you know, from a mortgage perspective, which is what our relation to the sales side is. And then I think over time, I think that's what's great about stuff like this. And, you know, when I started, a big part of my business was videos. Over time, people see that it's genuine, and it takes longer to earn that respect, I think, in the sales world. Once it's earned, I think you're in a good spot.
Yeah. Why I think it's so important that we get this message out is no matter who you work for, what company you work for, you're selling something,
mm-hmm.
you know, whether you're selling yourself, your services, whether you're selling, you know, a mortgage,
popsicles, earrings, popsicles are
whatever.
Good right now. It's hot.
Every company is selling something, and you're part of that process for them. And I think the first step is just the realization of that, right?
Yeah. And I think when you take it to the next step, when you really believe in the thing that you are selling, I think that's when the skill level kind of separates itself, because when you believe in what you're selling, you don't feel like you're selling it. You feel like you're just communicating why this makes sense for the consumer or why this is a good thing. And I think that's always the feedback. Anytime you're building a team or you're building a company is you want to have passion and you want to have that faith in the product that you're selling. And the more faith and passion you have in your product, I mean, the easier it is to sell. You know,
sure.
I think it sells itself, and then you know, kind of take it from there.
Cool. So I think both of us have found success in this industry, and we found success in sales in general. And really, I think that's the bread and butter of what I wanted to share today. Tyler, tell me a little bit about, you know, where have you found success in sales? What was that light bulb that went up over your head for you to take your business to the next level?
Yeah, you know, I had, you know, sometimes it's positive, you know, situations that give you that light bulb, and sometimes it's kind of a negative. In my case, it was like a semi-negative interaction that I had. That I'm kind of an emotional guy, if you haven't noticed that yet. So I'm emotionally happy, I'm emotionally sad, I'll cry. I'll get upset. Yes, passion. So I'm probably overly passionate. But I learned that and maybe some of the people that see this, if I work with you, maybe you like this part, but I've learned that I can't work with people I don't like. You know, so like not necessarily that I'm best friends with everybody that I work with, but I know that if I don't have that chemistry or click, man, if there's a tough scenario where there's not trust because of that disconnect, you know, I get upset quicker.
Yeah.
You know, and then I am not on my A game if I don't have that like pure connection. And when you get that pure connection in sales and in our world specifically, there's a trust factor, and trust is very important in our business. And I just learned, you know, when I first came into the business, was first trying to build my business, I wanted to talk to every realtor, every buyer. I wanted everybody, and I've learned that I can't do that. So instead of trying to do the broad sales or the broad pitch to bring people in, now I go after people that I know that I can relate to, connect with, and then I found that because of that, those relationships last longer too, because we do connect on a cool level. our job is super stressful. So if you like someone, it's a little easier to be stressful with somebody that you appreciate and can connect with. So that was the biggest eye opener for me, is that my personality model doesn't allow me to be super broad in my marketing. Like I've kind of got to, and not necessarily from a customer standpoint, but from that kind of referral partner, the people that we do business with that gets to those customers, there's got to be some kind of connection there. Oh, spiritually sounds weird, but like personality-wise, because I'm a handful too. If you guys haven't noticed on these videos too, like I'm not the easiest person to hang around. I'm kind of crazy. But that was something that allowed me to spend time on a certain area that was smaller instead of just throwing darts, just out there to see who caught one.
If I'm reading you correctly, it's kind of a quality over quantity mindset, right? Like I think that a lot of times we have that scarcity mindset where you have to work with everybody and take advantage of every situation. And honestly, that the abundance mentality that there's not only enough for all of us out there, but there's as much as I want if I go out there and get it, right?
And then the funny double-edged sword is you kind of hear that abundance thing, and you're like, oh, there's enough to go around. But no, I want it all. So it's always this tug that you have where you're like, all right, I know that there's a certain, kind of angle that I need to take for me to be my most efficient. But then at the same time, as a competitor, as being super, competitive, you still have that kind of push and pull of like, all right, but maybe this time it'll work. Maybe this time I can make it happen and build it that way. But yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing for me.
Sure.
Obviously you've been in business here locally and created a crate model too. Like, what was your big eye-opening experience?
So about 9 years ago, I came back to the Tulsa market after being gone for about 3 years, and I kind of lost my business overnight.
Yeah.
Like I lost it all.
Yeah.
Like I had what I thought was an excellent business that I had built on my own back and with hard work, with my ideas, okay, that I had come up with all this advertising and marketing. And I think, that was probably my biggest downfall, is that I thought it was all me, you know? And my biggest epiphany came when I realized that everything I was trying to do, somebody's already done it.
Yeah.
Like all I had to do was tap into that resource, and I was going to be able to find ways to increase my business like I've never seen before. I remember I went to this event. This is really cool. I went to this event, and at the end of the event, they teach you all these tactics, and they're like,
did you have to walk on glass at the end?
I think, we had to walk, and it was lit on fire.
Yeah.
And so I go to this event. At the end of the event, they're like, everybody that made $50,000 stand up. And so the whole room stands up. And then they're like, okay, 100,000, stay standing. 250 or I don't remember the tiers, but 250, 500. They get up over $1 million, $1.5 million. My seat's warm by this time, right? Yeah. And there's still people standing up. What blew my mind is some of those people that are still standing up, I was just talking to.
Yeah.
Like they're normal people, just like me and you. And that blew my mind. From that moment forward, I was like, whatever that guy's doing, that missed, belt loop with his belt, and still made that money. Like I'm doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I had it. So the company I worked for in Dallas that brought me to Tulsa, not brought me because we were coming, and it allowed that move to happen. Good. They do a big event at the end of every year, and they even use it as a recruitment perspective, but it had something very similar. And when you come from the corporate world of what we do, the numbers are different. So, and they had something that's very similar. They did like a banner or something that had each person's volume, and you're like, holy crap! Like, what it like in my world before, when you're on the phone or you're in the corporate, like part of your growth or coaching, if you ever wanted to kind of manipulate what you do, like change your spiel or whatever, you'd listen to other people's calls. And you'd listen to somebody that converted at a high level and realize, like, he doesn't really do anything differently than I do. There's always something that's hard to pick up on. But, man, when you see those people pop up, and it's just like it makes you the competitor. I think that's a big character trait in the sales side, is being competitive. Is the competitor's like, screw those guys. Like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we do that?
Yeah, and I think you have to be careful with the competitive thing. Like, put this in your pipe and smoke it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when you're
don't do drugs, kids. I didn't mean that figuratively or realistically. That's figuratively.
So
we pass on grass.
When you're using competition as a motivator, I'm just trying to be better than Tyler, right? But when you're looking at capacity as your motivator, like what is my personal capacity? That's a whole different ballgame. You know, like I could be selling myself short by just trying to beat Tyler. Yeah. No offense. I'm just saying, I could be selling myself short, and that's what I always used to do because I had the wrong motivations. I was trying to beat somebody to prove myself. When I'm trying to explore my own capacity, all of a sudden, there's no limit. The sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
And
then finding that capacity, and that capacity moves.
Sure.
Like, I think that's a big deal too, is that's as fluid as everything else. Is you get to a capacity, you feel the pain of when you meet that mark, and then you find a way to get past that capacity.
Are we still talking mortgage or just CrossFit?
Both.
Okay.
Both, which I find that capacity probably within the first 2 minutes of the workout. I'm a grip it and rip it type guy.
I know.
But I think that's like something maybe, especially in the mortgage industry and probably in the real estate world, I think we all felt like a new level of, oh, this hurts.
Yeah.
And then you go 4 or 5 months and realize that a level that you were freaking out on or didn't know, how you were going to survive in a positive way, fortunately. And then you look back how much comfortable you got at that number, and you get a new norm. Like you kind of level up, as people say. And I completely agree with you though on the capacity. That's a good way to do it. I think what's fun too is having, like in my world, I think because I'm ADHD, so I've got to have 50 million things going on, is that there's different goals. So you like have the competitive nature that I always have to pull down with. I'm never going to miss that soccer game. There's not a loan out there. There's not a relationship out there that's more important than my family.
I love that.
So like that's always something. But then you have that's where my push and pull is always is you want to do that. But man, you're sitting at work at 5:30 and you have gymnastics at 6:30 and you're like, I need to get this one more call.
Yeah.
But I think that's one that I've made as intentional is a big word that my family uses, that I've been intentional that that call can wait. And building a business, that call, that was kind of an understanding that Victoria and I had is, man, that first year of business, we had to make that call, so staying there, doing the extra stuff as you're building the business. The key is it's they talked about UFC fighters all the time where it's hard to get the belt, but it's even harder to keep it, so you can't back off. But it's just such a moving target all the time.
Well, I think that's what you have to keep in mind. It's seasons, right? There was a season in my career where I had to grind. We all
still do, but it's just a different grind.
Well, I do, but nowhere close from the time perspective that I used to, because that was the season for that, so that I can create the season I'm in now, which is making sure I'm at gymnastics and making sure I'm at every ball game and those things.
Golf, but I'm so jealous of his son. They post pictures golfing all the time, and it's never going to be me.
Man, I have 3 boys. It's a 4-man tee time.
Yeah.
Perfect,
I can't
I'm
fit
excited.
a fifth. The Patriot out there, and LaFortune hates that fifth golfer.
Yeah, it'd be awkward.
Upsetting.
It's all family.
There's our pause. This is our awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I think this is a good topic, guys. I really do. I think that this is something that we may even continue on the next podcast, because I just think it's so important that everybody understands how to maximize their time, what's worked for others. Obviously there's a lot of people out there to learn from, but if we can learn from each other's mistakes, if we can learn from what did work and didn't work, I think that's going to make us all better.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay to be a sales guy.
Absolutely. That's the main thing.
Salesperson.
Don't judge us.
I think that's great.
Cool. So thank you guys for listening in. Give us your feedback. Again, we'll probably continue this talk next time, but we'd love to hear more about what your thoughts were.
Better launch that pencil at that camera.
All right, guys. See you later.
Check you later.